People ask why intelligent, hardworking people remain financially stuck despite decent incomes and genuine desire to change. They blame the economy. They blame their employers. They blame luck. But I spent decades studying human misjudgment, observing how the mind systematically leads people into terrible decisions while convincing them they are being perfectly rational. And I can tell you with certainty, the real reason most people aren't rich has nothing to do with any of those external explanations. It is psychological. It is operating below conscious awareness, and it is predictable. The elementary part of psychology, the psychology of misjudgment, as I call it, is terribly important to learn. There are about 20 little principles, and they interact, so it gets slightly complicated, but the guts of it are unbelievably important. Of all the models that people ought to have in useful form, and don't perhaps the most important lie in the area of psychology. Let me tell you the 4 that destroy financial lives most consistently. The first is what I call the consistency and commitment tendency. The human mind is a lot like a human egg. When one conclusion gets in, it shuts down so the next one can't get in. What you think may change what you do, but perhaps even more important, what you do will change what you think. If you have spent 20 years behaving like someone who is bad with money, your brain has constructed an identity around that behavior. And that identity will override every conscious attempt to change, every budgeting app, every savings goal, every resolution made on January 1st. You can't fight your own identity with willpower. You have to change the identity first. The second great destroyer is what I call social proof, bias from over-influence by the conclusions of others, particularly under conditions of natural uncertainty and stress. This is a lollapalooza, meaning its power is immense. When your entire social circle spends freely becomes the definition of normal. Your brain is not making a conscious calculation. It is simply observing what the people around you do and calibrating your behavior to match. It's not greed that drives this. It's not even conscious desire. As Warren says, it's not greed that drives the world, but envy. And envy is a great driver of proclivity to spend. The only reliable solution is to change who you observe as normal. The third is psychological denial. The reality is too painful to bear, so you just distort it until it's bearable. We all do that to some extent, and it's a common psychological misjudgment that causes terrible problems. This is why people don't look at their actual net worth numbers. This is why someone can earn good income for 12 years and genuinely not know their retirement balance within $20,000. The vagueness is not accidental. It is the mind protecting itself from a painful reckoning by keeping reality permanently blurry. Precise numbers end the self-deception. This is why wealthy people know their numbers and financially struggling people almost never do. The fourth is what I think of as future self-disconnection, a variant of doubt avoidance tendency and deprival superreaction working together. When the future benefit is abstract and distant and the present cost is immediate and concrete, the mind systematically discounts the future into near irrelevance. Saving for retirement feels like giving money to a stranger because your future self genuinely does not feel like you to your present brain. This is not weakness. This is the architecture of the human nervous system expressing itself exactly as designed. Now, here is what makes all of this catastrophic. These 4 tendencies do not operate independently, they combine. When your financial identity says you're bad with money, social proof confirms it's normal to spend everything. Psychological denial keeps the numbers vague enough to avoid confrontation, and future self-disconnection makes retirement saving feel pointless. You have a Lollapalooza effect, multiple powerful psychological forces all pointing in the same direction. No budget, no savings rate target, no motivational speech will penetrate that combination. You must address each root cause directly at the level of psychology, not behavior. Awareness of these biases is not enough. You must build systems to counteract them through deliberate identity construction, through changing your reference group, through forcing precise numerical clarity, and through making your future self as psychologically real as your present self. That is the actual work. Everything else is theater.
If your financial life is not where you want it to be, the problem is not luck, income, or opportunity. It is habits you have internalized without realizing. A lot of people blame the system, the economy, bad bosses, inflation. But listen to this, I have watched hundreds of people make millions and hundreds more lose millions. The difference is not income, it is not talent, it is the things they spend on, the habits they follow, and the financial beliefs they silently accept. In this video, we uncover the real reason you are not rich yet, and it is not what your financial guru has told you your whole life. Welcome to Harper Mumbling. Every financial advice video tells you to budget, invest, save more, spend less. This information is correct but insufficient because it addresses symptoms while ignoring causes. If you have heard this advice repeatedly and your behavior has not fundamentally changed, that is not because you lack willpower or discipline. It is because the advice never reached the level where your financial behavior is actually determined. Today we go deeper than budgeting and savings rates. We examine the internalized beliefs, invisible comparisons, and psychological programming that determine your financial behavior before your conscious mind gets involved. The deepest root cause of persistent financial struggle is not income or expenses. It is financial identity, specifically the unconscious belief about what kind of person you are regarding money. Every person carries a financial identity formed through childhood observation, formative experiences, and repeated self-narratives. Some people have an identity as someone who is good with money. They naturally track spending, feel uncomfortable with debt, and find saving easy because it matches who they believe themselves to be. Other people have an identity as someone who is bad with money, or someone who spends everything, or someone who never has enough. These identities operate below conscious awareness and override conscious attempts to change financial behavior. A specific pattern illustrates this clearly. Marcus earned $72,000 annually and genuinely wanted to save money. He read personal finance books, downloaded budgeting apps, set savings goals, and felt motivated every time he engaged with financial content. But month after month, his savings rate remained near zero. When he examined his behavior honestly, he noticed that whenever his bank account exceeded $3,000, he felt an unconscious urge to spend it on something. A nicer dinner, a new gadget, a spontaneous weekend trip. He could not explain the urge logically, but it was consistent and powerful. Through reflection, Marcus traced this pattern to his childhood where his family never had money and having extra money felt suspicious or precarious, like it was temporary and should be enjoyed before it disappeared. His financial identity said people like me do not have savings. When his account balance contradicted this identity, he unconsciously corrected it. This is not psychology jargon. This is the real mechanism behind financial behavior that willpower alone cannot override. Until Marcus consciously rebuilt his financial identity by repeatedly telling himself a different story about who he was with money and by accumulating evidence that contradicted the old story, his conscious savings goals were fighting against a deeper unconscious narrative that won every time. The second root cause is invisible reference group comparison, where your financial decisions are unconsciously calibrated to match the spending level of the people you associate with most closely. Humans are deeply social animals who use peer behavior as a primary guide for normal behavior. In financial terms, this means your spending level naturally gravitates toward the spending level of your closest social group without conscious calculation. If your friends regularly spend $80 on dinners, $3,000 on vacations, and $35,000 on cars, your brain registers this as the normal baseline and your spending drifts toward these levels regardless of whether they match your income or wealth-building goals. An accountant named Lisa understood budgeting intellectually and knew exactly what she should be spending in each category. But when she audited her actual spending, she discovered it matched her social group almost exactly rather than her budgeted targets. Her friends spent approximately $900 monthly on dining and entertainment. Her budget said $300. Her actual spending was $850. Her friends drove cars costing $35,000 to $45,000. Her budget said $20,000 used car. She owned a $38,000 car. Her friends took 2 or 3 significant vacations annually, averaging $4,000 each. Her budget said one vacation at $2,500. She took 3 vacations, averaging $3,800. Lisa was not spending consciously to match her friends. She was spending because her social environment had calibrated her definition of normal. The restaurants they frequented required $80 per person to be an acceptable choice. The vacations they planned required $4,000 minimum to be worth discussing. The cars they drove set the floor for what counted as a reasonable vehicle. Her conscious budget was fighting against an unconscious social calibration that had been operating for years. This is why changing your reference group is one of the most powerful financial interventions available, far more powerful than any budgeting technique. When your new reference group spends modestly and invests aggressively, modest spending and aggressive investing become the new normal that your unconscious behavior gravitates toward. The third root cause is a tolerance for financial vagueness that prevents the clarity required for wealth building. Wealthy people know their numbers with precision. They know their net worth to within a few $1,000s. They know their monthly savings rate. They know what their investments return annually. They know their effective tax rate and what strategies could reduce it. This precision is not obsession. It is the minimum level of clarity required to make good financial decisions consistently. Most people live in comfortable financial vagueness. They know roughly what they earn. They know roughly what they spend. They have a vague sense that they should be saving more, but do not know exactly how much they are currently saving. They know they have some debt, but have not calculated the exact interest cost annually. They know they have a retirement account, but could not tell you its current balance within $20,000 or what it is invested in. This vagueness feels comfortable because precise numbers create accountability. When you know exactly that you saved only $2,800 last year against a goal of $15,000, there is nowhere to hide. A marketing director named Christine had been in the workforce for 12 years earning good income. When she finally created a precise financial snapshot, the numbers shocked her. Net worth $41,000, roughly 3 months of her annual salary after 12 years of working. Monthly savings rate for the previous year, 4.2%. Total investment account balance, $28,000 despite 12 years of contributing to a retirement account. Annual interest paid on various debts, $4,800. Money gone forever with nothing to show for it. Christine had known abstractly that she should be doing better, but the precise numbers revealed the specific gap that vague awareness had allowed her to avoid confronting. She had been living in comfortable vagueness while 12 years of wealth-building opportunity passed. The precise numbers were uncomfortable and necessary. Without them, any improvement was accidental rather than intentional. The fourth root cause is psychological disconnection from your future self, where your brain literally processes your future self as a stranger rather than as you. Neuroscience research has documented that when people imagine their future selves, the brain areas that activate are more similar to those activated when thinking about strangers than when thinking about the current self. This means that saving money for your future self feels psychologically like giving money to a stranger, which explains why it is so difficult to prioritize. Every financial decision involves a trade between present self and future self. Spending $200 on a dinner benefits present you immediately and concretely. Investing $200 benefits future you abstractly and distantly. When your brain processes future you as essentially a stranger, the trade feels unfair. Why should I sacrifice for some stranger? This psychological mechanism explains why people chronically undersave for retirement despite knowing they will eventually be the old person who desperately wishes they had saved more. The future person who will suffer from today's undersaving genuinely does not feel like you to your brain right now. Wealthy people have somehow bridged this disconnection, developing a vivid, concrete sense of their future self that makes future benefit feel nearly as real as present benefit. They think about future them with specific detail, where they will live, what they will do, what they will regret not having done. This psychological connection makes future-oriented decisions like investing and delaying gratification feel less like sacrifice and more like self-care. Less wealthy people operate with the opposite psychological orientation. Present self is real and deserving. Future self is abstract and distant. So present spending always wins the competition for current dollars. These 4 root causes, financial identity, invisible reference group comparison, comfort with vagueness, and future self disconnection, operate simultaneously and reinforce each other. If you believe you are bad with money, you will not seek precise numbers because they confirm a painful identity. If your reference group spends everything, spending everything feels normal and not spending feels abnormal. If your future self feels like a stranger, sacrificing for them seems irrational. Each root cause supports the others, creating a self-reinforcing system that conventional financial advice cannot penetrate because conventional advice addresses behavior without addressing the beliefs and psychology generating the behavior. The solution is not a better budget or a higher savings rate target. The solution requires working at the level where these root causes operate. For financial identity, you must actively construct a new narrative through conscious affirmation and behavioral evidence. Every time you save successfully, you tell yourself, I am someone who builds wealth. Every time you avoid an unnecessary purchase, you tell yourself, I am someone who prioritizes financial security. You're not trying to change your behavior with willpower. You're trying to change your identity, which then changes behavior automatically. For reference group calibration, you must either change your social environment or create a secondary reference group of people with financial values aligned with wealth building. Online communities, financial accountability partners, and investment clubs provide reference groups where frugality and investing are normal behaviors rather than exceptions. For financial vagueness, you must create and maintain a precise financial snapshot reviewed monthly. Net worth, savings rate, investment returns, debt interest costs, all of it measured precisely so the gap between current reality and desired reality is clear and motivating rather than comfortable and ignorable. For future self-disconnection, you must build a concrete, vivid relationship with your future self. Write a letter from your 70-year-old self describing what they wish current you had done differently. Create a specific vision of what you want retirement to look like, where you live, what you do daily, what you worry about or do not worry about. Make future you as real as present you so that investing in future you feels like self-care rather than sacrifice for a stranger. The real reason you are not wealthy yet has nothing to do with the economy or your boss or inflation or luck. It has everything to do with the financial identity you internalize from your environment, the reference group whose spending you unconsciously match, the vagueness you accept about your own numbers, and the disconnection you feel from the future person who will live with today's decisions. Fix these root causes and behavioral change becomes natural rather than forced. Ignore them and no budget or savings plan will ever stick because surface behavior always reflects deeper psychology. This is Harper mumbling, and if this examination of the real root causes of financial stagnation showed you mechanisms operating in your own financial life that surface level advice never addressed, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who feels stuck financially despite doing everything conventional advice suggests they should do. Leave a comment about which of these 4 root causes resonated most strongly with your personal experience. Turn on notifications for future videos about the psychological foundations of wealth building that most financial advice ignores. Thank you for watching, and remember, you will not change your financial life by changing your budget. You will change your financial life by changing your financial identity, your reference group, your tolerance for vagueness, and your relationship with your future self. And every other change will follow naturally from those deeper shifts.